Okay, everyone. So in this next lesson, I just want to run you through on how to create a GitHub repository first, so that we can have a way to document our progress into our project. So let me just create here PHP procedural, or let's just say procedural PHP 2024. And I'll just leave all of this and let's go create a repository. And I'm just going to open up a folder from where I have created this, and I'm just going to go to the directory. I have that in my htdocs. So in our web server, in XAMPP, that's where we will normally put all of our files or projects all together so that we can access them on the web. So right now I have this htdocs, and I'm just going to go here into this URL on my local machine on my drive E, and I'm just going to type cmd so that I can open up Visual Studio Code on the command line. I'm just going to type code dot. Now we do have our PHP folder opened up on our Visual Studio Code. So as I mentioned, we can use HTML. Let's say I'm going to have an index.html here, and anything that we have in, let me just go create a emmet here, very simple template here. We have an HTML document, and let's just say procedural PHP 2024. Anything that we have here will be rendered in our browser as HTML, right? So let's just say this is going to be procedural PHP 2024 crash course. And if I try to open this up, I'm going to open up this in File Explorer. I have my Firefox as my default browser. I can open up this on Google Chrome. We can also explore Google Chrome, but for now, I'll just go stick with the default browser that I have here and open this up on, I think I'll just open it with Firefox Developer Edition. So now we do have procedural PHP 2024 here. We have our procedural PHP 2024 crash course, and it's running without any server, without having our server turned on, right? That's because this HTML file is currently working on our local machine, and it doesn't require any server to run it. As long as we go and have a browser, we can run any HTML document and access that in our local browser. Now, what I just want to show you here is that, let's go back to our code here. Before we go and proceed to any PHP exploration, let's just first try to open up the terminal, and then I would want to go back to my Git repository, and I'm just going to copy all of this command. And as I mentioned in previous lessons, do not execute anything that you don't understand. So here we have an echo command, which is just going to be creating a README file that will contain this comment of procedural PHP 2024. We will be initializing a Git repository in our local machine. We'll be adding that file that we've created with the git add readme.md, and then we're committing this message that will be used for us to identify what tasking we accomplish, which is the -m here. It's a message for the first commit that we will be doing. And we have our Git branch, which is going to be the main or the master branch, and we're going to have this git remote add origin, which is going to be the remote repository in GitHub, from where we will be able to find most of our version controls. And we have our git push to the origin main, so we only need to do the origin main here during the first time that we execute this line of code. So this should be able to create for us a repository from where we can track our progress and easily divert back or revert back to an older version of a project that we're working on if ever we will be needing to go back to an older version of our project. Now let's go try to execute all of this. I'm going to do it line by line, just so that I'm pressing on the left or right mouse button, press that key. We now have that readme.md with this comment, procedural PHP 2024. Just take note, I have installed auto open markdown preview here, just so at least because this is going to be useful for you to add some descriptions about your project. And this is actually heading 1. As you can see, it's actually not a comment, but it's a heading 1. And if I wanted to have a heading 2 here, the size of this will be a heading 2. So let's say I'm going to be description, project description. You would see it's a lot. So you would see here that we do have the following text, and this is like H1 in HTML, and we do have H2 in HTML. If you have totally no background on HTML5 and Markdown, I will be leaving a link to my courses here, HTML5 crash course. I'll create a coupon for this so that you can get it for free, and the introduction to Markdown crash course that I have also created. So at least you will be able to learn some of the basics of Markdown and HTML5 before you proceed on understanding or proceed on learning PHP. Now going back to our GitHub repository, let me just go and initialize this. Let me minimize this, and also this one. Just going to drag this here, and let me just go get the next command. Copy paste that. Now we have this initialized, and it's tracking the changes that we have so far made in our GitHub repository. You will see it's colored green. That just means we're currently tracking the changes that we have made. And this is now a GitHub repository. We want to add the readme.md file that we have here, and we want to git commit our first commit here. First commit, add index.html and readme.md markdown, and we want to push this to the main branch, or commit this. We want to create a branch, and that's going to be for the main branch, so that you will see that's also down here, main branch. And we want to push this to the GitHub repository remote, to our GitHub remote repository, because this is our local Git repository, and we have our Git remote add origin, which will be this rodprogramdev procedural PHP 2024. And we also want to get that final line, which is going to be pushing to our main branch. So now, if we did this correctly, we should now be able to see that if we refresh our browser, we now have some of the following, and it's already here in our GitHub repository, and we now have a way to track the progress that we have so far made in our project here. And I think because we did some changes, it's we weren't able to save this part. And just to show you guys, if you don't have any background with Git, at least you will have a little bit of introduction to it. And let's you'll see it's currently tracking the changes that I've done on my index.html and my readme.md here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add git add all git commit -m and add project description heading. And we can also have a description for it. Add index or HTML template boilerplate, HTML boilerplate, or let's just call it HTML document template. And let's have git push. Now we can see that this has already propagated. Let's double check, and let's see. We now have 2 commits, and we have add project description heading, that's the title. And if we try to, you would see this is the description below it, if you want to add more details. And if you're working with the team, this is going to be essentially useful for you to track who's doing what taskings, or what they have been able to contribute to your projects.